Good evening, everyone. I'm Rico Hill, host of From Sickness to Health. Now, that's easy for me to say because I've been the host of From Sickness to Health for about 11 years now. You might say, well, this seems like a new podcast. How's it been 11 years? Well, it's been 11 years because the show of the same name is on a little network called 3ABN, and I host the show From Sickness to Health there. And one of my guests, probably the most renowned, popular, just the most exciting kind of enthusiastic about health guest that I had on the show was Dr. Milton Mills. And let me just tell you, Dr. Milton Mills is more than a doctor. He is a man of God. He's a man who is passionate about health, and he's passionate in a way that I've never seen before. He's passionate about it in a way where he just gives the straight, unadulterated truth. And I love that about him. And I appreciate that because I'm kind of that way myself. But what I love about Dr. Milton Mills, he never says no. Whenever I've reached out to him, he's always willing to jump in and share his passion. So tonight we are going to be interviewing our first From Sickness to Health podcast, some 11 years from the time that we did the show on 3ABN. Tonight we are with Dr. Milton Mills' first podcast of From Sickness to Health. And tonight we are talking about men's health. What a great place to start. It's not discussed enough, but tonight we're going to talk about every aspect of it as much as we can. And so I'd like to welcome with me Dr. Milton Mills. Dr. Mills, as I call him, Milton. Sometimes I call him Preacher of Righteousness.
Pleasure to be here, Rico.
It's good to have you. Good to see you, my friend. Look, Milton and I, we have conversations, and that's what this is going to be tonight, a conversation. I've not prepared anything that's all structured and makes us come across as if we are rehearsed. I mean, that has its place. But what I enjoy most about you, Milton, is you can just spout the facts right from the hip, right from the books, And, I like to say this about you, Milton, and I've told you this. I think you are single-handedly responsible, by God's grace, of course, and his providence. But you were on a documentary called What the Health? What the Health?
Right.
Kit Anderson, right? And it really took a look at the disparities and sort of like it was a continuation of kind of the conspiracies, if you will, in the various agencies and institutions surrounding health and how they're actually making us sick. Anyway, you were on that documentary as an African American, and as I recall, I don't think that there were a lot of people of color. Yeah, okay. So I remember correctly, but you absolutely were one of if you were the only one, and you said some things on there that made African Americans move in a direction that we've never seen before. In fact, the Washington Post stated that the fastest growing demographic becoming plant-based and healthier are African Americans. That was in an article in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Milton, talk to us about the role you played on that. How did you end up in that documentary and the things you said? Talk to us about that.
So again, I have to give full credit to God and to His providence and the Holy Spirit for that, because that opportunity came to me out of the blue. How do I want to say this? One of the things that I've learned from reading the Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy is that we always have to take things before the Lord when things come before us. So one of the stories I remember from Patriarchs and Prophets was when Hezekiah got sick, and Isaiah came to him and said, "Get your house in order because you're going to die." And he wept, turned his face to the wall, and prayed to God. And said, "I'm not ready to die." And God said, "Okay, I'm going to grant you, more years of life." And Hezekiah said, "Well, what sign are you going to give me that my prayer is going to be answered?" And God turned the sundial back. I don't remember how many degrees, but
It was 10 degrees.
10 degrees. And that, in essence, what that meant was God literally turned the earth back on its axis, which was, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
And that was such a phenomenal thing that ambassadors from Babylon, the strongest nation on the then known world at the time, came to Israel to find out who was this God that was so powerful he could literally turn the earth back on its axis. But Hezekiah was so filled with pride that instead of telling these ambassadors about God, he showed them all the treasures in his treasury because he wanted to impress them with his presence as a earthly leader. And what he did was fill them with greed. And they went back and told Nebuchadnezzar about all the stuff Israel had, and he decided he was going to come get it. And he, in essence, harmed his nation's future and did them a disservice, and also did God a disservice, and missed an opportunity to champion the Lord. So I say that to say that we always have to lay things before God to ask him, what should I do? And is this opportunity from you? And how do I exploit this opportunity? So I got contacted by the guys that made Cowspiracy, and they said, "Hey, we're doing this documentary on health, and we'd like you to be in it." And that seemed like a good opportunity, but when you get contacted by people who aren't necessarily spiritually minded, it could go either way. It could be something that God could use to glorify his name, or it could be something where they're going to talk about a bunch of evolutionary foolishness and go somewhere else. So I immediately asked, I said, "Lord, is this something you want me to do?" And he said, "Yeah." So I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll be in it."
And now we see the results of that. And the results of that are just a growing number of people who are choosing to be healthier through a plant-based diet or plant-based living. And that's pretty powerful when you think about how, like I said, I always say, you want to know why there's a movement? Well, how many people saw What the Health?
Rico, what I'm leading up to is that I cannot tell you the numbers of people of color, especially Black people, who have come to me and said, "I did not think veganism was for Black people until I saw you in that movie." And it still makes me emotional because
Wow.
I'm not taking credit for this. I realize that this was God's doing. There's what is that scripture? This was the Lord's doing, and it's marvelous in our eyes. That
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
God brought this to me, and he honored me with this, and it I'm humbled beyond belief.
Praise the Lord. I'll tell you, Milton, I use What the Health as a outreach and evangelism tool to bring people into, not to convert people to veganism, but to actually convert them to having clearer minds, better health, and an experience closer with God. Because we'll talk about that. You know, there is a connection between our physical health and our spiritual health, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
here's where we connect really, really well, though, Milton. We connect because whenever we have a conversation, we don't just talk about data. We don't just
Right.
talk about research, and you have plenty of it. Everyone who knows you, and like when you went before the what was it? The you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going, right? You went before there was a
The
tell us
U.S.
about that.
Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee. Yes.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, and people basically have watched this and they said that brother was bold with them, and you had on your scrubs, and you were just like, tell us a little bit about that experience as you
So,
went there
yeah,
and just spoke the truth.
right. So every 5 years, the dietary guidelines are revised, and there's a period right before they're revised that they allow groups to come and offer commentary about how they should be revised. And you apply for, I think it's 4 minutes to offer your opinion. And I submitted a request for time, and they granted it. And
Boy, were they sorry that they did that. They were sorry that they
probably.
did that.
And I wanted to offer an opinion about removing the recommendation for dairy because of its inappropriateness for people of color.
Well, wait a minute. What do you mean by inappropriateness? Okay.
Because
Scientifically, what does that mean?
so 75% of African Americans, 95% of Asians, 50 to over 70% of Hispanic people, and more than 65% of people of humans around the world are lactose intolerant and unable to digest the sugar that is in dairy foods, and then there's a whole host of problems with the proteins that are in cow's milk that cause allergies and anemia in babies, and some babies some children have a severe reaction called NEC, necrotizing enterocolitis, where they literally get a sloughing of their intestinal lining and can actually die from this severe allergic reaction to it. I mean, it's a very dangerous and inappropriate thing to be feeding children. Very young children can develop type 1 diabetes from being exposed to cow's milk. It is just not an appropriate thing to be feeding children. And but it will make children of color sick when they are exposed to dairy, and it's not necessary. Doesn't.
But wait a minute. Wait a minute, Milton. Some people are listening and they're saying, but a glass of cold milk. A glass of cold milk with some Oreo cookies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
That was me coming up, and I
Right.
felt fine. I felt fine. But
You
I
probably
wonder
thought you
though.
did, but you probably didn't. Yeah, because
Aha. So okay.
you
So
didn't connect the GI distress and the diarrhea and the cramping and the bloating that occurred later to what you had ingested. Yeah.
okay, that just got to be a little too personal, but okay. So you stepped up to the mic, got your 4 minutes, and then you said what?
So and I want, so I had intended to talk about the inappropriateness of this product, because it's not even a food, it's a product. I mean, milk is designed for the baby of a particular species, and cow's milk is designed for baby cows, not human beings at all. But what shocked me was the fact that of the 25 people on that committee, there was one person of color. And I said, no wonder you guys have guidelines that are so inappropriate for people of color, because you don't have any people of color up here. And that's
Mm.
why you're so insensitive to the needs of people of color. And there is no excuse in the 21st century to be so racially insensitive to the needs of Americans of color. This is a disgrace. So that was the tenor. And I said, I am no longer surprised at your complete inability to understand the needs of American citizens. And you should be ashamed.
So you drew the correlation between the lack of people of color on that committee with the fact that they keep approving something that doesn't meet the needs, or rather, put it another way, is actually causing injury to a whole population. Not
Exactly.
not only African
And
American,
we haven't even talked
Asian.
about the epidemic of prostate cancer among Black men, and dairy consumption is the leading risk factor for prostate cancer.
I see what you did there. You led us right into the topic that we're having tonight, which is we're
Okay.
talking about men's health. And it's really important for us to understand. There's questions coming in, and I'm appreciative of that. But we want to understand, men have a different kind of experience when it comes to health. Is that
Yes.
right? And it's I don't know if you have data on this, but what's interesting to me is that whenever I go here or there and share health topics, this past Friday night, I was in Detroit, Michigan, and was sharing with a group of men, and they here's what they did, Milton. They designated Friday night just for men. The women couldn't come, so it was kind of a fireside chat, if you will, of just men talking about men. And I chose to talk about the very thing that you mentioned, and that is prostate health. And the fact that, the numbers are just staggering when you consider that by the time a man reaches the age of 50, he's got a 50% chance of an enlarged prostate that can become something worse. And by the time, it almost seems like the percentages go up with age. And
Oh,
they and
absolutely.
the research shows that by the time you get into your 70s, 80s, and Lord knows if you get into your 90s, it will be cancer, and most men will die from it. So what you just said, you just made a bold statement. You said there is a very strong correlation with dairy products. Talk to us
Oh,
about that.
absolutely. So uh, let's be very clear. Prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer incidence and death in men. But what is horrifying is that prostate cancer is 70% more prevalent among Black men than it is white men.
Well,
It
I'm sorry, what was that number again? And I'm going to say
70%.
to our producer, if we can put up some of these numbers, because it'd be nice to have them in the chyron in the lower thirds, just for people to see after it's spoken, so that it really makes the
Right.
impression that we wanted to
Because
make.
this
Continue.
is frightening. This is frightening. It is 70% more prevalent amongst Black men than it is white men. It strikes us at younger ages. So prostate cancer tends to appear in white men in their at the earliest late 50s, but typically more in their 60s, 70s. Black men start getting prostate cancer in our 40s. Do you hear
Mm.
me? 40s, 40s and 50s. When we get it, we get aggressive prostate cancer that starts in our 40s and starts spreading very early. What's wrong with that is that when prostate cancer spreads, it kills. Okay? Once it starts spreading, your 5-year survival drops to less than 30%. All right? So we get more aggressive forms of the disease that kills us much sooner and quicker. We die from it. So we've got to spread the word. And the problem is that when Black men get prostate cancer, we get quiet. We don't talk about it. We don't tell anybody about it. And we just die in silence.
Hmm. So here's the question. This raises a big question for me, and that is um, men in general. But you're pointing out that black men sort of die in silence. But in general, men tend to not take their health as seriously as do women. I think that if there were 50 women who were watching this podcast, they would say, I have to stay on my husband's case about going and get his annual checkup. You know, I can speak anecdotally from when I go out and do a health talk, and I ask how many of you men are aware of what your PSA, which is um,
What's that
proteins.
specific antigen?
Yeah, yeah. So I asked that question, what's your PSA? And they basically will, only out of say 50 men, 3 or 4 will raise their hands. That's a problem, isn't it?
It's a terrible problem.
So do you have any insights as to what is it about men that we don't take as seriously our health issues? And when we start to, and this might be a part of it, maybe I'm answering my own question, like, and I've been guilty of this, maybe you have too. So let's be real, right? Let's be real honest. You get something, it's an ache, a pain, or whatever. You say, oh, let me just shake it off, or let me run it off, or let me go get some water. You look for something that you can do yourself, but in reality, no pain, no ache, no discomfort should be ignored, right?
Absolutely. I tell them,
So what's our problem? What's wrong with us men?
we're testosterone poisoned. Okay.
Break that
That
down.
is, we want to be tough guys. And I tell my patients, tough guys die sooner. Okay. That we got to get away from these macho head trips where we want to appear to be self-sufficient. We want to think that, being tough and being having these ideas of being strong and self-sufficient and independent and not needing help means that we're the big strong independent guy, because that is the nonsense that will make us late, as the expression goes. It's the nonsense the devil uses to isolate us, to get us in a situation where by the time we are forced into receiving help, we're too far gone. And the disease has proceeded to the point where it's very difficult to get the help we need. There is no shame in seeking help. It's like when Jesus was washing feet and Peter said, "You're not going to wash my feet." And what did Jesus tell him? "If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me." It's like, humble yourself and get the help you need. So, we need to get our annual screening. We need to, and look, I mean, I don't know what it is about black men and their butts, but we just don't like to get our colonoscopies. We don't like to get our prostate exams, and we just need to get over this.
Well, the examinations are very different now, aren't they? So they're a little more, easy to endure. I'll say that. But let's hold off on that for a second.
But they are what they are,
Yeah.
and
But I'm making the point. I'm making the point, Milton, that it's much more feasible, much easier for us to just go ahead and do it. You don't. The
right,
prostate examination is not what it used to be.
Look,
but let's can we take a step back? Can we take a step back, because I want to miss a few things before we run out of time, because you and I get to talking, and
right.
before you know it, the time is gone. And there are a few things that I know that people want to know, and we spoke about a few things, but we can't take for granted that people speak our language. Right. I don't know who's watching and who will watch later on, right? So you mentioned the spirit of prophecy, yeah, and I think that and I'm using this because that was the first thing that was mentioned. And I said, do people really know what that is? And the spirit of prophecy, it's really it is the Holy Spirit inspiring men and women to speak a thing before it happens, right? That is the spirit of prophecy, right? It's not restricted to one person or one church. It's throughout the Bible that whenever men spoke by the Holy Spirit, according to Peter, they spoke having been inspired by the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
And the Bible then defines, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus, right? So whatever Jesus has said, and he said, I tell you a thing before it happens, so
Right.
that when it does happen, that you might believe.
No,
Okay.
thank God.
So, but when you mentioned it, it was manifested in the writings of one Ellen G. White, and then you did mention Patriarchs and Prophets, which is one of the books in the Conflict of Ages series. So I just want to make sure that we clean that up, and people can go and they can look and search and get an understanding of this as well. But here's something else that I think that we did. We started talking about plant-based, what the health and how you inspired probably a generation. But a lot of people don't know what plant-based is. I'm going to Delaware this weekend, and the person who's hosting me, they said, "What are you?" she said, "Are you veganism?" "Oh, you vegetarian?" I don't know what the difference is. That's what she said. And she's someone who's around it all the time. And she says, "Do you eat fish?" There's some people who will say, I'm a vegetarian. I just eat fish, as if fish has become, is not meat and it's a vegetable, right?
Sure.
So
Right.
let's break it down.
Let's define these terms.
Let's define the terms. What is vegan, vegetarian? What is plant-based?
Okay. So I tend to use the term vegan and plant-based interchangeably. Okay.
Mhm.
But when I use the term vegan and plant-based, I mean diets that contain no animal products. Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
So that means no dairy, no eggs, no chicken, and no fish, because fish don't grow on trees and they don't come out the ground. Okay. And neither do chickens. Um, uh, Vegan can be a somewhat political term, because people who are vegan uh, will sometimes be very, very strict in terms about
Leather products, leather and
leather products,
yeah,
and
fur, animal
fur,
skins, yeah.
right, and I also try to avoid um, uh, um, the unnecessary use of uh, um, um, what do I want to say, luxury animal goods that traffic in the misery of animals for no reason other than human pleasure. I mean, that's just cruelty for no reason. But typically, I adopt a diet that does not utilize animal secretions, or products for consumption. So yeah, no dairy products, no meat or flesh foods of any kind. So yeah, no chicken, no fish. I say nothing that ever had a mother, a face, or foot. So that gets your shellfish, uh, um, and so forth. Um, and it's a whole food plant-based diet.
Mhm.
So the reason that's important is because there's a lot of plant-based junk food or vegan junk food that's out on the market that utilizes highly processed plant foods that are um, uh, um, take plant what starts off as a plant products, but removes a lot of the fiber and a lot of the nutrients and phytochemicals that were originally in the plants, and turns it into junk. Like Oreos are vegan, but they're not very healthy because there's no fiber, there's no phytochemicals, there's no antioxidants. It's just sugar and processed carbohydrates. And so you want to be eating primarily plants that are intact and whole, and have their fiber, that have the antioxidants and the phytochemicals that were in the original plants when they
Yeah.
were grown, because that's where the health is. And that is what's going to give you all of the health benefits that are contained in those plants and help you again ward off disease, and not just ward off disease, but really attain your highest state of health and live to your natural lifespan, and attain the healthiest state that you can possibly attain.
You know, we're about halfway through our talk here, and
And,
I like.
haven't even begun to touch this topic.
That's why we have to do part 2, 3, 4, 5.
There you go. Yes.
Hey, we can do a weekly broadcast, because I know there's so much that you know. People don't know this, but you know, the organization that really brought down the or made the milk industry sort of change their slogan, which was "Milk does a body good." You were a speaker and lecturer for them, right?
Right.
And you know, you are an incredible lecturer in your own right, and many of the Veg Fest, you are a featured speaker, whether it's in beautiful places like Hawaii or the one that's coming up in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh downtowns. Summerfest, yes.
Yes. So you're a part of these things, and you are a I like to call you, in addition to preacher of righteousness, a root cause evangelist, because really what you've just described is the root cause of many of the diseases that men are dealing with. But in this little, you know, our time moving towards the end of this, continuing to talk about men's health, I like to sort of label this as God was right.
Absolutely.
God was right, right? And see, so because he designed us. The Bible tells us that in Psalm 100, verse 3, know you not that he's God? It is he that made us and not we ourselves, right? So God made us. He knows what to feed us. He knows when we're supposed to go to sleep. He knows that we need exercise. But, you know, but for men, you know, what did you call it? Testosterone poisoning.
Yes.
And I like that term. I started thinking about Tim Allen. Tim Allen is an actor, and he was on the show Home Improvement, and he had this a whole comedy bit about men, and he does this kind of grunt growl thing. And he says men love meat, you know, and men, you know, sort of look at eating, say, a salad as kind of feminine, you know. What, you know, or eating nuts and seeds, that's bird food, right? We're men. We need something with blood dripping out of it. But let's talk about, because you mentioned a few things, shellfish, you talked about, you know, these things. Where does that come from? What was God's original ideal? And are men excluded from this original ideal that God had?
So, not at all. I once heard this kid say, if you want to be strong as an ox, you should eat like one, right? Because the strongest, longest lived animals, land animals on earth, are all plant eaters. We built civilization hitching our plows, our wagons, our stagecoaches, our machines to the backs of the plant eaters. There is not a carnivore on the planet that will attack a full-grown elephant or rhino.
Okay, so you're telling me that an elephant is plant-based?
Completely.
A rhino is plant-based?
Completely.
Gorillas have a very strong-looking muscular physique,
and all they eat are plants, and nothing will mess with a full-grown male gorilla. They are completely plant-based.
Well, how do they get their protein if they're just eating plants?
Oh, what?
You know I'm messing with you, right?
I know you are, and I'm glad you asked that question, because it gives me the opportunity to tell people to go to my website, Dr. Milton Mills, plantbasednation.com, and read and look at my lecture on protein, because it points out that all protein is made by plants originally, and any protein you get from animal tissue is recycled plant protein, because only plants can take nitrogen out of the air, change it chemically, and incorporate it into amino acids, which are then turned into protein. and the animals eat the plants, and then other animals eat the animal tissue. So protein is made by plants, and then the animals eat the protein and recycle it. So all protein is made by plants. All plant protein is complete protein. So protein comes from plants. And people think they need meat to get protein. Cows don't eat meat, yet there's plenty of protein in their tissues. It is like, this is lunacy for people to think they need meat to get protein. It is just absolute lunacy. And instead, what they get is cholesterol and fat, and they poison themselves. I'm glad
you mentioned that. So tell the men, what diseases are coming as a result of believing this myth and this lie? Because you have
number one is erectile dysfunction. Okay.
Oh, did you have to start there?
Yeah, I did. I did, because that's what they
couldn't you have started with heart disease, and that being the canary in the coal mine that you
no, because actually the smaller vessels clog up first, and those are the ones that supply the penis. Then the heart clogs up. So in fact, I encourage
say that again, because you know what, that's something right there that people need to know.
They need to know.
The smaller
the smaller blood vessels get blocked first, and those are the ones that supply the penis, and then the ones that supply the heart get blocked up. And the erectile dysfunction is a harbinger of artery disease, and will let you know that if you can't get it up, your heart is having a problem pumping as well. And
so you said a harbinger. So another way of saying that is the canary in the coal mine.
Yes, sir.
Once you know that happens, it's the messenger.
Yeah. If you have erectile dysfunction, you have heart disease. Okay. Mm-hmm. It just hasn't manifested yet, or you're not aware of it, but you have it.
Okay. So what other diseases? What other diseases?
Kidney disease. You have cerebrovascular disease that can lead to strokes and dementia. You have renal disease that can lead to kidney dysfunction. You have peripheral vascular disease that might eventually lead to amputations in your legs. Again, you have general vascular dysfunction that can cause retinal damage and a whole host of other problems. You have pathology that could result in cancer of various types. So you have a wide range of pathological processes occurring in your body that can present as a variety of different diseases in different organ systems, of which the erectile dysfunction is, again, as you say, the canary in the coal mine, telling you there are problems with your body and your physiology.
Now we have about 10 minutes left before I know I told you it was going to go fast. I knew it was going to go fast, but we have to do it again. Now, we'd love to have you here in the From Sickness to Health studio at some point.
I don't live that far away.
Well, we have a car, we'll travel, right?
Yes.
So look, I wanted to get in a couple of things because we want to make it very practical for men. And men, I really feel a burden. Wives, I feel a burden. We feel the burden that we're going in the wrong direction. And no matter how far, here's the thing, no matter how far you go in the wrong direction, at some point you have to turn around.
Right.
And the thing that we hope is that you have enough energy to make the distance back in the right direction. A wise man once always told me, no matter how far you go, if it's the wrong way, you gotta turn around. Because you'll never reach the destination going in the wrong direction, right? So we want to make sure that you hear the burden that we have for men who have these conditions, and they are so much more severe than our counterparts, right? Or women. And then as you drill down a little more, you see that within the Black community, even more so, right?
Absolutely.
So we want to offer some practical things. Let's say that save that for the last couple of minutes. But what was for those who might be wondering, because a lot of people don't know what to eat. There's so much misinformation, disinformation, confusion. People are turning to the internet. But what I like about no, I'll say I love about you, and I've learned a lot from you from the days when we did the first shows on 3ABN from Sickness to Health. What I loved is that you go to the Bible because, there can be lots of confusion everywhere, but the Bible is clear. And there's a couple of things that I would like for you to respond to, and we got to do it quickly. So, short answers. Okay, the first one is, and I'll tell you what they are. The first question is going to be, what was the original diet, and why did God in Leviticus say don't eat shrimp and don't eat pork? And there was a principle behind these things. So want to know why God said those things. So what was the original diet? First question. Second question is, then why did God turn around and say don't eat those things? Because there are some people who are saying, come on, it's just seafood, it's shellfish, that's nothing wrong with it. But share with us the principle. What was first? The original diet with God.
All right.
God was right.
The original diet was an entirely plant-based diet. When God created Adam and Eve, he told them to be what we would consider vegans. He gave them in Genesis 1:29 an entirely plant-based diet. Now, this is key, because after they sinned and disease and death entered the world, he cursed the earth. That's to be found in the third chapter of Genesis, and we
Verse
can
18.
infer, 3:18, and we can infer from that's when some of the animals became carnivores, but he changed the human diet, but
or added to it. He added to it.
He added to it. But my point is that even after sin entered the world, humans were still entirely plant-based, because he then said, you shall eat the plants of the field, but no meat. And when he brought the Israelites out of Egypt, he fed them with manna, which David tells us was the grain of heaven. It was the Israelites who started lusting after the flesh pots of Egypt. And it angered God. And he told Moses, he said, okay, I'm sick of this. Yeah, they're going to have meat. I'm going to send quails into the camp. And that's in Leviticus 11, where we're told that they ate so much flesh that it was coming out of their nostrils, and the fattest among them choked to death. And it was at that point that God said, okay, if you guys are going to demand to eat this stuff, I'm going to give you rules on how to eat it. And that's when he told them, you can eat fish with fins and scales, but not the scavengers. You can eat certain types of bird, but you will not eat things like shellfish and mollusks, because they're scavengers. They concentrate toxins in their body. They eat pollutants in the sea. Pigs are scavengers that have parasites in their flesh. And if you eat them, you will get worms in your brains and your bodies, and you are to avoid these things. So, and he also, very interestingly, gave them rules on how they were to cook animal flesh. They were supposed to drain all of the blood out of it, and that was to get rid of the heme iron, which modern flesh does not drain all the blood. And they were supposed to boil it, because frying, roasting, and grilling animal tissue raises the temperature up above 260 degrees. That creates carcinogens that increases the risk for cancer. If you boil animal flesh, it doesn't get above 212 degrees, and you don't create those same carcinogens. The way humans cook flesh now, that's why everybody's getting cancer, because they're not obeying the rules that God gave them. But the point is that God actually did not want us eating animal tissue at all, but we're ignoring everything he told us, and that's why everybody's getting sick and dying.
Okay, now someone is saying, well, hey, I'm in the clear, because you know what? I eat meat, but I eat halal. I drain the blood. Or I eat like kosher Jewish. We drain the blood and just according to what the Bible says. So what's the problem? I eat clean. In fact, I heard somebody say that I eat clean from the Bible. But we're living in a time the message for us in these last days, and this time in Earth's history, is because of the increase. Help me out here if I'm speaking falsely. It's because of the increase in the disease in animals.
Right.
Because some people would say, well, Jesus ate fish, Milton. He ate
Yeah.
fish.
Okay. First of all, we're only told of one instance where Jesus ate a piece of fish. Okay. And when he ate that piece of fish, that was not a lesson in nutrition. That was the proof to his disciples that he was a resurrected human being, and that he was that they too would be resurrected fully human. He was
It
not trying.
wasn't a lesson in nutrition. I
No,
like
it was not.
that.
It was to teach them that they would have a resurrected human body. Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and the fish that he ate ain't the fish that's available nowadays. All
What's
right.
what's the difference? What's the difference?
The fish that he ate was clean. First of all, he ate a piece of fish. All right. A piece to prove he was human. He again, it wasn't a lesson in nutrition, and it wasn't fried. It's like, people try to use that to justify getting a piece of dirty fish from a dirty lake and frying it up full of grease and eating it. You know what? You ain't eating that fish because Jesus ate it. You're eating it because you're addicted to greasy fish that you want to eat. Well, you know what? Jesus walked on water. You tap dance across the lake, then you prove something to me. But I'm not even going to argue with people about that, because the point is, if you care about your body, if you want to do what God wants you to do, you know good and well God created you to be plant-based. That's what the issue is. And so if you want to sacrifice your health to greasy fish and animal flesh, that's between you and God. The Bible is clear. We were created to be plant-based. That's what's healthiest for us. That is what's going to give you the clearest mind and the clearest communication with God's Spirit. That's what you need to be praying about, not whether or not Jesus ate a piece of fish. Okay?
Yeah.
That's where the issue is. And that's where the question is. Why is it so important for you to eat a dead animal instead of asking God, what is the cleanest diet I can consume that will give me the closest communication with you? That's where we should be focusing our energy.
So since we're focusing our energy, and this is our closing question here, we have to do this again. Got to do this again.
Yes, we do.
Closing question is, all right, you've pointed out things about my fish, whether fried or not. You pointed out the fact that milk and dairy is the leading cause for prostate cancer in men,
and breast cancer.
And breast cancer. So that's actually cancer for men. Prostate cancer is number one for men. Breast cancer number one for women, right? And the leading cause, dairy products. And we're talking not just a glass of milk, but we're talking cheese. We're talking everything that is derived from dairy products, right?
Right.
Okay. So with that being the case, I want to leave people with some encouragement. There's a study, and I want you to just comment on it and just kind of gives people some good things to think about as they are looking to, turn around on this road and come back the other way, right? Before they go too much further down the road. And there's a study from Harvard University, Institutes of Health, and University of Chicago that showed cruciferous vegetables, and we're talking about the vegetables of the plant variety: broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts. These are the things that people, that study, I should say, showed that for prostate cancer, they looked at all cancers, but they showed.
Yes.
They showed that cruciferous vegetables reduce a man's prostate cancer risk by 59%.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're one of those righteous doctors. You probably saying, eat more cauliflower, friend, eat more broccoli. But why aren't we hearing about this? This is a very practical thing that men could be doing. So there are some things that God has given us in love that help to counteract these things. Things that are high in antioxidants, so that it counteracts oxidation. Things that are high in, different specific antioxidants like sulforaphane, that is a serious cancer fighter. Talk about that as we begin to close.
Rico, you just hit the nail squarely on the head. The compounds that God has put in these plant foods will suppress the cancer and turn off and kill these cancer cells and keep you alive. And actually, if you even have the prostate cancer, can put it into remission. But arsenic in whole wheat bread negates the whole wheat. Okay. So don't think that you can eat a bacon cheeseburger and have some broccoli and that's going to do the trick. Okay. You got to cut the poison out. Yeah. You got to stop eating the garbage and then switch to the healthy, whole food, plant-based diet. And then you're on your way. Okay. Cut out the poison, eat the healthy diet, and you golden. But if you're still eating trash, you're going to kill yourself. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you can eat poison and take a supplement or eat an occasional piece of broccoli and that's going to do the trick. No, cut out the poison and you good. But if you're still eating garbage, you will kill yourself.
I can think of a few famous people who came down with prostate cancer, and they made their battle very public. These were, in some cases, people who were known in sports. People, and I won't mention their names, but some of us know who they are. But they said, as they talked about how the treatments they were going through, or different things that they were doing of a lifestyle kind of approach. And I remember one saying, I'm in the gym every day. I'm in the gym every day. I'm in the gym. And, it's not a silver bullet, right? It's more like a buckshot. And that includes more than just what you put in your body. And so, for example, it was great that this person was exercising more. Right. That's helpful. But he was still eating prime rib steaks. And
you cannot outrun a bad diet. You cannot exercise a bad diet.
You see how I set you up on that one? You see that? Yeah. Did you see what we just did? You cannot, producer, if you could put that up there, you cannot outrun a bad diet. You cannot outrun a bad diet. Okay, how about this one? Let me tee you up again. How about this? Some people say, but it just tastes so good. The taste of it is just so good.
And then that's when I invoked the image of Cousin Nene, because we all got one. Who's Cousin Nene? Cousin Nene is the cousin who got the no good boyfriend that don't have a job, beats her every now and then, knocks her teeth out, spends all her money, but she can't leave him. Right? And and the family gets together and say, why don't you leave that no account person? And she just says, but I love him. And you're like, but Nene, he wrecked your car. He spent your money. He put you in the hospital. He broke your arm. Why are you still with him? So I'm asking you the same thing about your diet. Your diet has caused you to have a heart attack, caused you to get toes amputated, caused you to get diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, a stroke, a heart attack. You got stents. You're on 50 different medications. Why are you still with that diet? Your diet is your cousin Nene. It's time to break up with your dysfunctional diet. If you got more medicines in your cabinet and you got seasonings in your kitchen, you have a relationship with a dysfunctional diet. If you are missing toes and you got stents, you are in a relationship with a dysfunctional diet. Those few moments of pleasure you get at the dinner table are not worth the years that you are going to be missing off your life. Break up with your diet. It's killing you. And why are you going to sacrifice your life for a learned habit? Nobody asked for fried chicken, pork chops, ice cream, and ribs in the delivery room. Somebody taught you to want this garbage. You can unlearn these bad habits. Divorce your bad diet and meet a healthy one and build a new relationship. You'll be much happier.
You know what? Those are some. I knew you would bring in the right analogy and metaphor. I didn't know you were going to go to Cousin Nene though. I like the Cousin Nene. You know what? We can brand that. It's like, break up, Cousin Nene.
Okay.
Get rid of Cousin Nene.
We all sit around and talk about her. Meanwhile, popping 50 pills.
Or said another way, don't be Cousin Nene to your diet. Don't be Cousin Nene. We can do T-shirts. I can see that.
Okay.
In closing, Milton, we definitely have to do this again. This is always fun. I remember when we did this 11 years ago, and because we believe what we're saying, here we are, doing it still, and feeling healthy, by God's grace, looking healthy. So we believe in what we're saying. Yes. And I try to be more like you every day, a root cause evangelist, telling people wherever I go that, I have borrowed some phrasing from you. You should know that.
We didn't get to the Holy Spirit download speed.
I know. That's why we got to do it again next week.
Yes.
Do it again next week. And we're gonna let's stay on this topic of men's health because it's needed. Yeah. And I can go in 50 other directions, and I know you can go in 1,000. So let's do that. I am going to sign off here and say thank you to our producer. This is my first time working with her, but she's amazing. I think she goes by Lonnie B, or I'm forgetting what her whole social media handle is, but I know her as the Good Doctor. So anyway, from us here from Sickness to Health, myself and Dr. Milton Mills. Thank you so much, Dr. Mills, for just your wisdom and just making it fun, man. Making it fun. I know people are just right now having conversations about Cousin Nene. So anyway, until next time, we look forward to seeing you on another. This is our first one, but on another, we're going to do a series. The next series of talks here on From Sickness.
From Nigeria. Awesome. Yes.
I see your name. So that's our distinguished producer. But from my heart, from Milton's heart to yours, keep it healthy and stay close to Jesus. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Milton.
My pleasure, man.
All right.
Why not me? I ask myself, was the song I sang off key? Hold back those tears. Convince yourself just wasn't meant to be. Some wish upon a star and hope one day that wish comes true, but I'm asking God with much regard.